Hello, everyone. Welcome to game number 2 in our best of 3 series between Duban and Dermas. Quick one once again in game number 2. Just a lot of struggling with aluminum, low, medium aluminums all over the map, and nukes to deal with them. Really turned that game into something special with an HQ level 4 victory going over to Duban. So we'll have to see if Dermas can pull it back in game number 2. Philithanic joining us once again. I imagine he's had a good chance to look at the map by now.
Yeah, so this is an interesting map. If you look at the top left corner, there is a really nice science spot which Duban decides he's going to take. Now the only problem with the science spot is it's next to iron, it's next to water, it's below aluminum, and then everything else, particularly silicon, is all the way on the opposite side of the map. So if Duban doesn't need silicon this game, it'll be great. If he does need silicon, he's going to need to purchase teleportation or pay through the nose for fuel costs.
Yeah, it looks like both of them have ended up pretty far away from silicon, in fact. So we'll have to see how that goes, how they're going to handle that this game. It is machine shops of the colony, not warehouses, which could have made that even more interesting.
Yes, Dermis deciding to go for the split high elemental quarry scavenger found, which is perfectly fine. Each of these tiles gets 2 per second, which is 4 per second, and there are no nukes on the map, so Dermis doesn't need to worry about his carbon being nuked out early.
Certainly. Also a nice high tile for Dermis for the aluminum metal mine, whereas Duban, he actually stuck to a low that has no adjacency, valued that and the slightly reduced fuel cost for it than going for maybe an aluminum that could have offered adjacency if it became an issue later in the game.
I'd definitely be tempted to hedge my bets there and grab that middle aluminum. And it's not too much. You maybe go from 0.7 fuel to 0.14 fuel.
Yeah, and that's 0.07 in particular. So
right,
very
0.07.
No, you're fine, but just a very, very low price for this fuel no matter what.
Both players are keeping up with each other on the upgrades. Duban going into food, which is going to be very nice. It started double. It's crept up to 151, which is another reason why I did like that science spot. Dermis also identifying that fuel is good, but Duban immediately shuts it down with the black market.
Yeah, interesting to me that Dermis is choosing to go into a chemical refinery on its own over here. While chemicals are extremely expensive, there's no pressure on them from the neutral colony for the moment. And on top of that, Dermis is already shipping reasonably far for his aluminum mine. That was the big downside to it. Almost half a fuel per second for that. Also is being forced to ship water and carbon. So that fuel price is very high. And it really makes me question this chem refiner, if this was a strong decision, or if it would have been better to simply move into an additional farm.
An additional farm, if you want. If you're insisting on using a black magic tile, then a electrolysis reactor just to cover some of that
fuel cost.
Fuel cost. I think Dermis founded second and upgraded HQ2 had a plan for all three of his claims. Is like, oh wait, I have one more. Better do something with it.
That is kind of what this chemical refinery feels like. In particular, it's actually already losing money. He has to scrap out of this. This was just. I wonder if this even made a profit once you count construction costs into it. I'm really not sure.
Yeah,
but I don't think so.
I would tend to agree with you there. So Dermis finding himself once again in a position you don't want to be as a scavenger, with your opponent, the scientist, beating you to the upgrade HQ3.
Yep.
And
extra claim auction.
It's extra claim auction will give us a chance to see what everybody's doing. Duban is moving into
power.
I'm assuming two wind turbines down at the bottom. The map. He's identified that this power price is creeping up and doesn't want to die to debt, which is something you always have to be a little bit concerned about as a scientist.
Yeah, 24,000 for that extra claim, but it is going to let him. Well, he has actually several options now because he has 2 claims available. He can add a 3rd wind turbine if he would like to. He could get into something like double electrolysis very easily if he would like to. We'll just have to see exactly what he decides. But 2 claims, always so much better to have in the bank than 1, as it just leaves so many more viable options open.
Right. It all depends. Duban is at B debt rating, so it's going to take a. And now those wind turbines aren't going to be making power money anytime soon, as they've both been circuit overloaded. So I do think that he's moving into glass
Glass, yeah, which I find
instead.
very strange.
Right now, I would be tempted to go into electrolysis reactors, except that the wind turbines are off because they do use money. But if those wind turbines were on, moving into electrolysis, you can just get this stockpile of fuel while your opponent is going even further into shipping things at HQ3. Just sort of make money off of your opponent. But
Definitely could have been a nice option there. So yeah, I do agree with you. The lack of electrolysis reactors is a little strange. The primary advantage to it is it consumes a little less power, but it's only a little less power than the glass kilns do. So I do question this decision out of Duban. I wonder how it's going to go for him. But right now, sea level of debt, things are not looking all that great, quite frankly.
no, not to mention Duban did buy up a stockpile of silicon, and was now decided that the glass kilns were not a good idea in going into the electrolysis reactors, as we suggested earlier. Duban here may not have made enough money to make that transition worthwhile either.
Yeah, that one seemed a little bit lacking. I think a lot of players have struggled to get the feeling of how quickly those primary resource prices move in 1v1. Prices move faster the fewer players that there are in the game. They will change more rapidly with less pressure on them. And that's an important thing to remember when you're trying to purchase these stockpiles in particular. Just can't quite get as much bought up as you might have expected because you are going to be driving that price sky high. That said, Duban's got 4.
Duban does have HQ4. Dermis is still struggling, lagging a little bit on HQ3. The only thing that Duban should be worrying about right now is he is in C debt with 122k in debt, and power is still really high. Now both of his wind turbines are going to come back up. One of them is gooned, so Dermis only can take out one wind turbine at a time, but when you are in C debt, taking out one wind turbine out of 2 might be enough.
Certainly might be. Circuit overload is actually going to land on it and go ahead and knock that turbine offline. So once again, Duban's still leaking power. And even if he gets this third one online, which is going to be important, it is worth noting that there are slowdown strikes available this game to get through the Goon Squad. I still like the line positioning against circuit overloads, but slowdown strikes are going to remain effective here.
Right, now the only thing is Dermis needs to figure out a way to get the upgrade. He just had his aluminum mine mutinied away from him. He's going into a second aluminum mine, which is
I don't
in the
like that.
short term fine, but long term, a scavenger, he's going to want all the claims he can get against this scientist, and that aluminum tile is going to be hard to transition into something useful.
Certainly is. Chooses to EMP out, well, frankly, pretty much all of Duban's production for the moment, rather than doing something like mutiny the tile back. But I still wonder if this is correct. There are no additional tiles available on the black market. This is a very, very heavy commitment. We're talking about, something along the lines of, I want to say 7% of all of your tiles across the course of the game committed to this extra aluminum. So 14% of them total, about, is what it might be, 12 to 14.
Yes, and then Duban right now is burning 413 a second in fuel costs. He has gone for the silicon all the way at the bottom of the map, which was one of the things that we pointed out at the beginning of the weaknesses of these two founding locations. So once this other metal mine comes back from the mutiny, he's going to be paying through the nose in fuel. The fuel price was a little bit high, Duban deciding to sell out of it once Dermis has moved into electrolysis reactors, but those electrolysis reactors are not even going to keep up with Dermis' shipping costs, let alone make him any money.
Absolutely. Well, I don't mind the sell still. There was the opportunity for Duban to take an upgrade. He hasn't done it just yet. I kind of wonder what he's waiting on with this cash, what he would like to do with it in particular. Perhaps was just making sure he could use the black market. I'm not entirely certain. But these shipping costs, I don't believe Dermis was accounting for them as he was making his other plays this game, considering that he had moved into triple wind turbine, one of them on top of some of his carbon, which has now been mutinied away and is causing some serious problems, quite frankly, but wasn't perhaps accounting for all the debt he would be getting from all this fuel, and was expecting to make some more money in this power than he was expecting. He has gotten to 4, but you can see the cash difference between these players, a whole order of magnitude difference between Dermas and Duban.
Right, so Dermis right now has an interesting situation. He needs about 40k more in cash before he can get the majority buy on Dermis, while Dermis needs 60k to defend himself. So this dust storm won't help getting that extra cash, as now his farms are only making 0.54 a second. So maybe it is the time to upgrade to HQ4, wait for this dust storm to pass, move into some more money makers, and then just finish out the game. Instead, he decides to pay down a bunch of debt.
That would be interesting. That's an interesting. Well, Duban's got 105,000 now. He really is getting quite close to being able to do this majority buy. The EMPs continue to rain down, despite the fact that he's wanting to stockpile money, because he also needs to ensure that Dermis isn't successfully making any money, keeping these electrolysis reactors offline, keeping these glass kilns offline. Going to be very, very important if Duban wants to go for the kill, which he's acting more and more like that's exactly what he's looking to do.
He is, which makes the paying off debt even more interesting. I guess he wanted to avoid getting this C to D debt tick, but if you're going to win the game in a couple of minutes, then or less, why do you care?
Dermis just leaking cash right now as well. I suppose that's these glass kilns coming online. He can no longer cancel them. So his cash reserves are actually very, very small once those are taken into account. We are going to see a transition into a little bit more carbon, but it feels like it's going to be too little too late. Duban is right on the cusp of being able to knock Dermis out of here.
He has it. It's just the slowdown strikes will make it a little bit more painful, but Duban has it.
He's going to clean it up. Yep.
He will take the series 2-0.
Strong win over to Duban. Managed to... I really, really like that decision in particular. Most players, I think, would have just simply gone up to 5, been like, I'm still ahead of the scavenger, this is wonderful, and that's great and everything. But I really like this play out of Duban because he was in so much debt in particular. You managed to just ignore that fact completely by cutting the game short before the debt can become a serious issue. And so really well done identifying all of that and identifying there was an opportunity opened up by Dermis' potential mismanagement of his shipping resources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see Duban, by paying down that debt, first thought about going to HQ5 and then realized he's so close and thought better of it. So there's a good identification by Duban.
Yeah, it's a nice move. Not many players would have made that majority buyout this game, that's for sure. At least not at HQ4. Just strong plays out of Duban there. Well, once again, we got to see most of the game and most of what was going on because we never actually went to the late game craziness. But I do want to check on a couple of details here just to reinforce what we were talking about. There's this idea that Dermis, let's see, Duban sold down quite a bit of fuel. Dermis bought, auto-purchased, in particular, 102,000 fuel this game.
Oh.
$102,000.
At one point in time, Dermis was close to being able to make power money. He came within, I think, 12k of paying off all his debt, and then he just went into more and more shipping, which goes straight into debt. If he didn't go into that shipping, he could have potentially made some money off of those wind turbines. Then Duban's C debt may have been an issue.
Yeah, and that's definitely something Dermis likely should have looked to exploit throughout this game more and more, was the idea that Duban had acquired a lot of debt relative to Dermis in order to get this spot, in order to get online everything that he was doing. The circuit overloads were available, the slowdown strikes were available to continue causing a problem in power. If Dermis had maybe identified all of that and simply done whatever he could to push the game long, things could have worked out okay. But instead, he opens himself up to this majority buy because of some mismanagement in how he was handling fuel, unable to make money in power, just a continual sequence of problems resulting in this majority buyout.
And chat's reminding us that he was very close to making power money and then purchased a claim for 16k, which put him right back into the debt hole and then never came back from it.
Nope, never quite pulled that off, unfortunately.